If you're following Johnny and Amber and events around them since Virginia, you might know Amber's in this movie In the Fire. The thing is, it did pretty bad. It's a small production, and most people like me didn't think it would do good, but this is pretty bad. 10% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and 32% audience score. Now, I gotta say, grain of salt on Rotten Tomatoes. However, one thing they've been consistent with is that the show critics who want to promote the movie for the insiders usually give it good reviews. And the audience is generally more honest. So a lot of times you'd have high critic score, low audience score, and you'd know, well, the movie's probably good. But in this case, nothing, nobody. Both sides are just saying, ugh, not so good. So I guess Amber fans and whoever hasn't heard of Amber or whatever, that very small fraction maybe liked it or something. But enough of that. Let's see some critic reviews. Now, I gotta say, personally, I had surgery. I've got some stitches on my side. It actually hurts when I laugh, but in this case, it might be unavoidable. I'm not trying to poke fun, but, seems like we got a lot of rotten here. And not from me, from this site. I'm just the messenger. Here's a little look, just to be clear. Bigger is sometimes better, not always though. 10% critic, 32% audience. I think that went up 3%, something like that in like the last 24 hours. Maybe it'll crawl up to 35%. However, pretty abysmal. Mark says there's a considerable flaw in the calculation of this tale and it leads to a sour, hypocritical conclusion. Hypocritical conclusion? Yeah, that's pretty bad. I mean, being hypocritical's bad. We know someone's hypocritical in real life, so I guess that makes sense. This isn't entertainment, it's an endurance test. That's pretty straightforward. A shallow, tedious, and forgettable horror thriller that suffers from clunkiness and lackluster plot that's dark but very low on suspense and intrigue. Amber Heard is miscast here and gives hammy performance. Well, I'm not exactly sure what hammy performance is. I'm not going to Google it. Probably ain't good though. Lazy ain't that great either. Tedious sounds a little bit like endurance up there, something you got to go through that you want to get over with. Low suspense is also pretty bad for a horror film because that's mostly what you want. But this guy here gives it a fresh tomato. Aaron Peterson from The Hollywood Outsider. In the Fire bandies back and forth between science and religious doctrine and ultimately delivers an engrossing thriller which contains some of Amber Heard's best work. My opinion, although I haven't seen too much of Amber, so take it with a grain of salt, probably. Her performances are mainly flat, pretty much all the same. But what do I know? I haven't seen her movies. It's just that there seems to be a general consensus here that this one's pretty bad. Some passion does emerge from performances, but wilder swings of condemnation along with romantic entanglements take material that initially feels invested in reality, turns it into a soap opera. Kind of an odd review there. I guess he's just saying a lot of it didn't work together very well. Fails as a crisis of faith science drama and a supernatural thriller, In the Fire is where it belongs. Belongs where? In the dumpster fire? There are full reviews here, but if I read the full reviews for every one, we'd have like an hour video no one would watch, so let's keep going. And this one here is from CNN nonetheless. A pretty awful starring vehicle for the actor that she also produced, a film unlikely to produce many sparks beyond those set off by the morbidly curious. That's exactly it. The guy who made this movie figured there were enough people who were morbidly curious to see what Amber was like in a movie. He was wrong. There wasn't enough. I gotta say, his theory wasn't so bad. Because once you got 1 billion people watching something, the probability that enough people will be curious is there. But I guess in this case, it wasn't enough. That's how the cookie crumbles, as they say. And by the way, Friday the 13th review there. And also, by the way, although Halloween's coming up, this horror film just couldn't cut it. For a movie about a sinister child unintentionally terrorizing a small town, it lacks any real suspense. seems to be a pretty common thought. Despite the title, there's not much heat in this slow burning horror saga, which is more tedious than suspenseful. Once again, what we heard about endurance, no suspense, lackluster, those kind of negative things. So that's about it. I think this is what most people expected, but maybe not even this bad. Maybe people expected like 30% for both, 40% for both or something. But I guess not. Yeah, this one little hair right here just won't go down. Oh well, what are you gonna do? If you're not subscribed here, consider it. If you don't, I'll be sad. Alright, we're done here. See you next time.